بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. What I want to talk about today is the concept of the right to remain silent. Okay. And the title of today's lecture, if somebody with good handwriting can write it on the board for me, inshallah, is You have no right to remain silent. Okay, you have no right to remain silent. Okay, and I'll explain inshallah exactly what I mean about this. Alhamdulillah. So, there is a concept that people have and believe in or think that they have a right to remain silent and not to say anything, and they believe that as long as they do not say anything to incriminate themselves or do not say anything to break the law, then they should be safe, it should be fine, should have nothing to worry about, nothing to fear. Okay, and this concept is particularly important or pertinent when we talk about the context of Muslims living in the West, living in America, living in Britain, living in France or Belgium or Denmark or Norway or in Europe in general. Okay? Or even in Australia, in the Western world, not necessarily geographically in the West, but in the Western world. Because there are certain beliefs, core beliefs and ideas that people in the West claim to believe in or promote. The idea of freedom of speech, the freedom of expression, the freedom, to speak your mind, to the freedom of belief and opinion, that you can believe whatever you like, that you can actually, express those beliefs even if others disagree with you or even if they find it unpalatable. They believe that you have that freedom, you have that right. And they believe you also have the right not to speak, not to say anything at all, and to just remain silent. Okay, so I just wanted to make that clear. So now, then we have another side to this Western world, okay, the Western world, because what we should all be aware of and should have noticed in the last 10, 20 years, okay, what's happened to the world in the last 20 years, is that the world has become very polarized. Okay, the world has become very polarized. It means it's become two extremes. It's become very clearly defined lines between two camps. Between two camps. Those in the West and those who do not like the West. And I don't mean here, people living in Japan as the East. I mean here, people who are with the West on their side in their war against what they deem to be opposed to Western values, i.e. Islam, and anybody who does not take their side. Okay? And that's been coined very neatly in the speech of George Bush after 9/11, when he declared publicly to the world, telling everybody globally that you're either with us or you're with the terrorists. And by that he means you're with the Muslims. You're either with America and you stand by them and you stand by everything that they do, and you will support them and defend them and protect them and help them and collaborate with them and cooperate with them, or you are with the terrorists. You seem to be, and they're at war with the terrorists, so therefore you are their enemy. So they made the world very polarized. And of course, in turn, there are others from the opposite side of the spectrum who they declared the same thing. In response to George Bush's statement, you had Sheikh Osama bin Laden, rahimahullah, he said at that time that indeed we are not with America. They said that they are not with America. And that caused this polarization. Many people from around the world, they started to say, fine, we are not with George Bush, we will be with Sheikh Osama bin Laden. And then you started to have Tanzim al-Qaeda fi Bilad al-Rafidain in Iraq. You had the organization of Al-Qaeda, they declared their allegiance to Al-Qaeda. They were not from Al-Qaeda before. Then you had in Yemen, and you had Tanzim al-Qaeda fi Bilad al-Haramain in Saudi Arabia. There started to be groups there. They declared they are with Al-Qaeda. Then you started to have Tanzim al-Qaeda fi al-Maghrib. The the organization of Al-Qaeda in north of Africa, in Somalia, in Morocco, in all those areas started to come out. You found it in Algeria, you found them in Somalia, in from Al-Shabaab, and suddenly, the world started to respond to George Bush's declaration, and they did not want to be with America. So America decided to divide the whole world. And what do they mean by you're either with us? With America in what? What exactly has America been doing for the last 20 years that they want you to take their side on? What do they want you to do? So let's have a look. In the last 20 years, what have they been doing? Okay, what do they mean? Okay, so let's say USA. Okay, what exactly is, America up to? What exactly are those fruits of freedom and democracy that America has established, is fighting for and killing for, and actually wanted to export to the world? Okay, well, let's have a look. Okay, so then you have the invasion of Afghanistan. Okay, so if you are opposed to the invasion of Afghanistan, therefore you are opposed to America, and you are a terrorist. This was, as far as they're concerned, that was especially at that time after 9/11, they were declaring, if you are not with them in this invasion, and they made it clear to Pakistan. They said, look, if you're not supporting us, if you're not handing over all the Arab Afghans that you find, if you're not handing over the ambassador of Taliban to America, then you are with them. We'll consider you to be with them. And so they declared, anybody does not want to come along with us, does not want to collaborate with us, therefore they are, with the terrorists. And so with the invasion of Afghanistan came things such as the atrocities at Bagram Air Base. Okay, the mass killings in custody, the people who were suffocated, in Bagram Air Base, the people who were left to, without food and drink or water in trucks, from anybody they captured from the Afghans. With that came Guantanamo Bay. Okay, with Guantanamo Bay, all their torture. It came waterboarding. And let's face it, waterboarding is the least of the torture that America employed. It's the least of the things that they used to do. Waterboarding is nothing. They used to use everything, from electrocution to, cutting off limbs. There are many things that happen in Afghanistan, and in Guantanamo Bay, beyond just a little bit of waterboarding, which is bad enough as it is. They arrested children. They arrested young children, old men over 100 years old, and they found them. Why? Because for them he has a white beard, he must be Osama bin Laden. That's the mentality they went with. And they were declaring, if you're not with America in all of this, you're with the terrorists. If you're not with America in what they're doing, then you're with the terrorists. But it's more than that. Okay, it's more than that. If you're not with them in the invasion of Iraq, because a couple of years later, they invaded Iraq. If you're not with them in the invasion of Iraq, then you are with the terrorists. And along with the invasion of Iraq came, Fallujah. Okay, the Fallujah massacres. Okay, what happened in Fallujah? Okay, what happened in Fallujah is they used chemical weapons. Remember that red line everybody remember talking about? America was the one who used white phosphorus chemical weapons in Fallujah. They blockaded the entire city. Okay, they blockaded the entire city. They wouldn't allow anybody, man, woman, elderly, young, anybody, ambulance, nobody was allowed to leave. Nobody was allowed to leave. And then they bombed the entire city and they killed thousands and thousands and thousands of people. They used chemical weapons, white phosphorus, the effects of which are still being felt by the children of Fallujah. In the words of the British court, who arrested people who protested against it, some of them in this room, who protested against those bombings of Fallujah, the words of the prosecutor, they said what America was doing was not a massacre. It was called depopulating the city. In other words, killing everybody. That's what they were doing. But if you're not with America, you're with the terrorists. If you're not with them on their side in this, then you're with the terrorists. What else did they do? What else do you have to be with them on? Abu Ghraib. You might say, the people condemned Abu Ghraib, people stood against it, people complained about it, but that doesn't mean, they actually opposed America. They were not opposing America's right to be in Iraq. They were not saying, therefore, those soldiers, are, illegitimate, or that the people in Iraq have the right to actually fight and defend against them, meaning to kill those American soldiers. No. They never said, that's not what they mean. They mean that, well, it wasn't very nice, but we were fighting for freedom at the end of the day, so it's okay. So it's okay. Still, anybody in Iraq to fight against America was seen as bad. What? You're with the terrorists. No, they never said that, therefore, because we don't like what happened in Abu Ghraib, it looks very ugly, therefore America's wrong and those people in Iraq are okay. No, they stood with them. All those Western journalists, all those Western media, they stood with America and still said, yeah, it doesn't mean that you can fight against America in Iraq. It doesn't mean that those people living in Iraq are allowed to actually manage their own affairs, rule themselves, disconnected from America. No, you're still either with America or you're with the terrorists. This was the clear message from them. But more than that, what else were they doing? Okay, what else were they doing? Okay, and this, by the way, Abu Ghraib, let's be absolutely clear what happened in Abu Ghraib. There was torture. People were beaten to death. Okay, there was rape. Okay, there was pedophilia. Because it wasn't just men that was in Abu Ghraib. No, children, women, they were all raped. They were all attacked. They were all tortured. Okay, so it's not something small what's going on. So all this is the fruits of freedom and democracy. What else? You must be with America in supporting the occupation of Palestine. Okay, you must stand by Israel. You have to recognize the right of Israel to exist. You have to recognize the right for Israel to steal the land of the Muslims in Palestine. You must recognize the right of Israel to build more settlements. You have to recognize the right of Israel to do whatever they want. You're not allowed to fight against Israel. You're not allowed to liberate the lands of Palestine. No, you can't do any of that, because that would mean you're with the terrorists. You're not with America. So that's absolutely clear. That's what they're talking about. More than that, that's including, of course, everything that happened in Gaza. What happened in the West Bank, all of the bombings, all of the shellings, all of the incursions in there, everything. All of the children that were killed in Gaza. It must be absolutely clear that Israel has the right to exist. If not, you're with the terrorists. Okay. More than that, they have to, remember as well what happened in Israel with the cluster bombs. Just put that into this list there as well. Obviously, even according to their own law, they said it's not allowed. Yet, you have to stand by Israel's rights and America's right to defend Israel and stand with them. Okay, so all the bullets, the rockets, the bombs, the drone strikes as well, you have to stand by the drone strikes. And we're talking about, extrajudicial killing. Just go out and kill. America decided that they have jurisdiction over the whole world. We don't like what you're doing all the way in Yemen. Okay? Oh, we don't like what you're doing in Yemen. You're breaking American laws in Yemen. So therefore we can kill you. Therefore we can send a drone to kill you. That's what basically they're saying. Oh, we don't like what you're doing all the way in Pakistan. You're breaking our laws in Pakistan. Then they say to you, why are you Muslims calling for Sharia in the UK? We're not drone striking you, are we? We're just saying Islam is a better alternative to what you've got. Who wants all this mayhem when you can have justice? But on the other hand, they want to say, if you break American laws in Pakistan, or in Afghanistan, or in Yemen, or in Somalia, they can, no trial, nothing, and why would you have jurisdiction over those places in the first place? They say, no, we can just drone strike you, send a rocket, and we can kill you. And after that, as long as we say, we thought that he might be a member of Al-Qaeda, therefore your blood becomes lawful and has no sanctity. That is the mentality of America. So anyway, this is just a little bit of a backdrop for us. Okay? Now, besides this, obviously, they supported the occupation of Somalia as well. Okay, you might think, well, that was Ethiopia, but no, it wasn't. It was America. It was Britain. If you actually look to a lot of those generals in the so-called new Somali government, for some reason they have British passports. Why? Because they were living here. They went over there. That was not called terrorism. That's not called going abroad to fight. Why not? Why not? And they were going there, and they were as well torturing people. They were beating people. They were raping people. They were doing everything. So all these things happened, and they had this global policy. Okay, so anyway, this is just so a little bit of background information. So how does that really work? How does that relate to our lives as Muslims living in those countries? How do we react? What do we do? How much freedom do Muslims have exactly to actually disagree with that or agree with it, or to speak about it or debate it? Can we debate it? Can we talk about it? Is there that freedom? Because they claim, America, Britain, these Western, they claim that, well, actually one of the core fundamental beliefs they propose is freedom of speech. That, yeah, if the government does something wrong, you should be allowed to say something about it. You should be able to express your disagreement. You should be able to say that, no, they're wrong. Okay? They're wrong. That's the idea. So, at that point, there was a point in time, perhaps before 9/11. Okay, so let's look at sort of the timeline here. Okay, so we have pre-9/11. Okay, so we have pre-9/11. Okay, I'm talking about here now Muslims thought okay, so Muslims thought, I'm going to have a little bit of a, they thought we have freedom of speech. Okay, this is what everybody thought. People thought, we come here and, this was the tactic of the West. In this country, they thought, look, we'll bring those Muslims over here. We'll tell them, look, you have freedom. We have such a nice civilization in this country. We are so tolerant. You have freedom of speech. You can say what you like. You can't do that in your country. You come from a dictatorship. We are so free. We are so fair. We have so much justice. And what they thought was that Muslims would come here and thought, wow, we have freedom. Wow, these are such good values. We don't need to hold on to our Islamic values. Let's embrace this new Western way of life, Western ideology. And then, they become more Western. They become more British than the British themselves. They become more English than the English themselves. They have stiffer upper lips than even the English. That's what they thought would happen. They thought, they'll drink tea and crumpets, they'll have fish and chips, they'll have everything. They thought we would become the new English, the new British. That's what they thought. Okay? And some of them, they did that. And funnily enough, when they did that, they came out, with their English clothes and the English, or attempting an English accent, and they started to eat English foods and speak English words. And the people still called them names. They still said that you're a foreigner, you're an immigrant. What are you doing here? They still called them the P word and the N word and all these words. They still said that you don't belong here. You're not really English. No, you're not really English. You're never really English. You're never really English. No, I'm born here, but they still call me an immigrant. How can I be an immigrant? So they will have that mentality. They always had that mentality. But what happened was, especially after 9/11, the problem with this plan of the British and the West and the American in general, the problem with that is that Muslims are not like other religions. They're not like other people. Hindus came to Britain, from India and big masses of them, and they thought, yeah, wow, freedom is fantastic, and they became British. This became very British. People from other religions came. People came from Africa. People came from the Far East, from China, from everywhere, and they all became British. They all adopted the way of life of Britain. But there was one community that was a bit stubborn, because what happened? They came here and said, okay, look, we know Islam. We're Muslim. I have Islam. Okay, I know what Islam is. I know what Islamic values are. They came to Britain and they said, okay, so this is what Western values are. I said, but it's not very good. It's not good enough. Why do I want to become Western? Why do I want to become British when Islam is better? I've already got much better Islamic values. So why should I adopt these new values? So obviously this was the snag in the plan of the British, because they thought you'd be so amazed by the Western way of life that you would freely and happily and choose, out of your own choice, you would choose to adopt the side of America and Britain and side with them and help them and be with them. They thought that's what they thought would happen. So when they didn't do that, when Muslims didn't do that, in fact, more than that, what Muslims started to do, there was a small portion of Muslims that went beyond that. Not only did they insist to still wear their hijab, still have beards, they insisted to still pray, they still insisted to hold on to their own Islamic identity. More than that, there were some Muslims that actually started to say, well, no, actually, to the native British people, started to say to them, why don't you become Muslim? Why don't you give up this way of life? And Islam started to become the fastest growing religion in the West. Women who used to hate the idea of hijab, they started to wear the hijab and love the hijab. Men who used to hate Islam, they started to embrace Islam and love Islam. It started to spread everywhere. So this is obviously a nightmare for Britain, because that wasn't the plan. That wasn't what they were hoping for. That wasn't what they were trying to do. So then, this question of, do we have freedom of speech came up? Okay, do we have freedom of speech? Because initially, the British, the Americans, they thought, well, okay, we don't like what they're saying. We don't like the fact that they're calling to Islam and people embrace Islam. But we're supposed to believe in freedom of speech, so we must let them speak. We have to let them speak. And many Muslims who weren't maybe doing a lot of these activities, they thought, yeah, we have freedom of speech, because they never really said anything worth censoring. They never spent any time actually saying anything that would upset the government enough to stop them. Then some people started to do that, started to speak up against all of these crimes. 9/11 happened. Okay, 9/11 happened. And suddenly Muslims realized, Muslims realized that freedom never really existed. It dawned on them. The whole thing was a trick. Because when you actually want to say something, it's one thing when you say, I have the freedom to disagree with the government if I want to, but I don't really want to. It's easy to think you have freedom when that's the case. But that day when you turn around and say, well, actually, America, and Britain, Israel, you are the terrorists. In fact, you are the ones terrorizing everybody. How can you torture people in Guantanamo Bay? How can you torture people in Abu Ghraib? How can you use chemical weapons in Fallujah? How can you support Israel against Palestine? When people started to say that, they suddenly realized, actually, why am I being arrested? Well, hang on, why am I being harmed? Why am I being censored? Why am I being attacked? Why am I being, persecuted? I thought I had freedom. So it suddenly dawned on people, especially after 9/11. Okay. Muslims started to think, they started to realize, well, actually, I don't have freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is just one way. When they want to insult Islam, then they have freedom. It's all freedom. We can't complain. What are you upset for? We have freedom in this country. Then when you actually want to say, well, hang on a minute, you're the terrorist, they say, well, you can't say that. No, who do you think you are? You can't say that. You come to this country, you're our guest, you're an immigrant, you should be grateful. You're taking our benefits, why are you complaining for? So they start to suddenly change the whole tone. Suddenly they realize the freedom is only when you want to attack Islam. When you want to attack the enemies of America and Britain, then you have freedom. When you want to criticize America and Britain and their allies, you don't have the same freedom. It's not one, this is two-tier system, two laws. One law for the Muslim, law for everybody else. It's all very well to have freedom to say, criticize the government to say what? You can criticize the government and say, you're not tough enough on the Muslims. Oh, you have that freedom, sure. You have that freedom. But if you say, you're not tough enough on the Israelis, if you say, how dare you, you are the murderers. If you say to the British soldiers, actually, because you killed that baby, you are a baby killer. You think it makes sense. You think it just 1 + 1 = 2. But no, you can't say that. You're not allowed to say that. Suddenly, the tables turn. So suddenly Muslims realized they don't have that freedom anymore. Suddenly people start getting arrested for speaking out. After 9/11, you had a whole it's a systematic silencing of outspoken Muslims. Who was there, at the time of 9/11, who was outspoken in the UK? There were many. There were many public preachers calling for Islam, opposing the occupation of Muslim lands in Palestine, in Chechnya, in Afghanistan, all these places. People like Sheikh Abu Qatada. He used to be free. He used to be speaking publicly. He used to do lectures. Sheikh Abu Hamza, Sheikh Faisal, Sheikh Abu Isa even, Al-Rifa'i, rahimahullah. You had Sheikh Abu Bakr Muhammad. All these people were out publicly talking and speaking. Suddenly, the rules of the game changed. Suddenly, these people who had been talking for over a decade and giving lectures for over a decade, they changed their mind. So before 9/11, they had things like the Salman Rushdie affair. So people, they did say Yusuf Islam even, he was saying some very incredible stuff, openly calling for the death of Salman Rushdie. And they were in the streets everywhere. It was fine, no problem, you have freedom. After 9/11, everything changed. The attitude of the British government changed. The attitude towards freedom of speech changed. Okay, so suddenly now, they decided to take action. So Sheikh Abu Hamza, Sheikh Faisal, they've been doing lectures for over a decade. Hundreds of hours of lectures recorded, put on audio tape, selling it in the streets, in the bookshops. It was no problem. Suddenly they changed their mind, said no, you can't do that anymore, and they arrested them. They arrested Sheikh Faisal. Even before that, they arrested Sheikh Abu Qatada. At that time, they arrested him, without charge, no trial, and they wanted to extradite him. Okay, and they just kept him. They kept on going in and out and in and out. But he was in actually for a very long time. Around 2002, it was the first time that I remember anyway, that he went in for an extended period of time. So Sheikh Abu Qatada was now behind bars. Sheikh Faisal was put on trial. Sheikh Abu Hamza was put on trial. You had the famous raid on Finsbury Park. Then you had Sheikh Abu Isa was arrested as well. So a couple of years later, Sheikh Abu Bakr as well. Later on, he also had to leave, and he was decided, okay, we won't let them back. So suddenly the attitude changed. Now people were being physically silenced. And let's face it, what did Sheikh Abu Qatada ever do except for speak? It was a speech. That's all he was arrested for. What did Sheikh Faisal do? He gave speeches. What did Sheikh Abu Hamza do? He gave speeches. What did Sheikh Abu Bakr do? He gave speeches. There wasn't, there were never any actual so-called plots. Even they were never even accused of being part of any kind of plots in the UK or trying to bomb anything. Nothing like that. It was just you gave the speech. Why are you talking about this for? Why did you say this? Why did you say that? Why do you say? This was the nature of all of those arrests and many other cases beside them as well. So at this time, they realized, Muslims in the UK, in America, and other countries, and also there were other arrests as well in America. I remember Sheikh Ali Tamimi. There was there's a whole lot of Muslims over there as well. Muslims suddenly realized that freedom of speech actually is no different in the West, than the freedom of speech in Saddam Hussein, Iraq. You had the same freedom of speech in Iraq. What? If you want to say, if you have freedom in Iraq to say about Saddam, he's a great man. Ba'athism is good, is the way. You have freedom. If you want to say, no, Ba'athism is the wrong way, and we want to have Islam, you'll be arrested. And that was exactly the same thing mirrored in the UK and in the West. That's what Muslims started to realize. So then what they started to do is they relied upon, so they said, at least I have the right to remain silent. Okay? This is obviously what we hear in all the movies and from America and even in this country. They say the Miranda rights. They say you have the right not to answer any questions when asked. But if you don't say anything, so they thought, okay, this is my right. I don't have to say anything. I don't have to say anything. As long as I don't say anything illegal or anything that they dislike, at least then they'll leave me alone. That's what they thought. Okay, so many Muslims, they started to say, okay, look, we best not talk about jihad anymore. We better not talk about Chechnya anymore. Let's just be quiet about Kashmir, be quiet about Palestine. If we just remain quiet and get on with our lives, we are moderate, law-abiding, simple, ordinary Muslim. I'm the moderate, the mainstream. I just, quiet. I'm just living here. I'm just, go to work 9 to 5, come home, spend time with my kids, go to the masjid on Friday, and that's it. That's my life. I don't say anything. So why should they harm me? Why should they come after me? That should be fine, right? That should be okay. That's in America. That's one of the things that the ordinary American is proud of. That they have the right to remain silent. They don't need to say anything to incriminate themselves. They don't need to go to if the police ask them a question, they don't need to answer and admit to all the crimes and go to prison for it. They can just say quiet. You're fine, and you'll be fine. You have no problems. So that's what many Muslims started to think. Okay, so they thought that is the best approach. Many Muslims thought the hikmah in this country, the wisdom, and this is not the meaning of hikmah, by the way. They thought the best wisdom for a Muslim living in this country or in the Western countries is let me just remain quiet about all of those controversial issues, then they'll leave me alone. Then they'll leave me alone. As long as I don't speak out, as long as I don't come out and condemn all of these crimes of Britain and America and all their allies, as long as I don't speak against what they're doing, then they should leave me alone. Okay, and they became angry. Anybody who didn't do that, anybody who wasn't silent, anybody who did insist to come out and say, no, I don't care what you do to me, I will say that you are terrorists. I will demonstrate out against the British soldiers when they come out into the parades. I will say that no, you are baby killers. I will say that you are the criminals. Okay, those Muslims who came out, those Muslims who thought, look, we should just be silent. They want to take that approach. They want to take that approach. To think that is better for them, they became angry with those Muslims. They started to say, look, they shouldn't do that. Why are they doing that? That's not wisdom. Is that really the case? Is it really the case? It's not wisdom to do that? Is that really what wisdom really means? But anyway, besides the point, that's what the majority of the community, they felt is the best way forward was to remain silent. Be quiet. Okay? Be quiet. Then 7/7 happened. Okay? So then we had 7/7. Suddenly, okay, I'll put here actually. The UK said, suddenly, after 7/7, Tony Blair came out and he declared publicly, the rules of the game have changed. The rules of the game have changed. The rules used to be, just stay silent, you'll be okay. Just stay silent and you will call you moderate, good Muslim, you're practicing Muslim, you're not extremist. It's just those ones that we are fighting. We're not fighting you, we're just fighting them. We're just fighting the ones who are fighting violent terrorists. Those are the only ones we're fighting. We're not against you people, you're good. You don't say anything about Israel. You don't say anything about what we're doing abroad. You don't call us terrorists, so we like you. That's what it was before. Then Tony Blair declared, no, the rules of the game have changed. You no longer have the right to remain silent. It's not good enough that you remain quiet about all of the crimes of Britain and America. It's not good enough that you just keep yourself to yourself and you don't, undermine democracy or undermine the Western foreign policies. No. They said now everything in the Muslim community became about one question. Okay? One question. Do you condemn or do you condone? Okay? Do you condemn or do you condone? Okay? Do you condemn what the Muslims are doing? And therefore condone what we are doing? Do you condemn 9/11 and therefore justify our retaliation for 9/11 in Afghanistan? And justify our Guantanamo Bay and our Abu Ghraib and everything else? Do you condemn this Muslim and that Muslim? Do you condemn Sheikh Osama bin Laden? And you can't say, I don't want to answer, I have the right to remain silent. No. If you say that, they will write publicly in the newspaper, he refused to condemn. He doesn't condemn. No, he doesn't come out and even if you condemn them, sometimes they will write, he didn't condemn it. Not only that, like we saw with Muhammad al-Muazi. Okay? Not only that, even if you condemn him, but you just said, but he's a nice guy. You can't say that. You can't do that. You can't say, he's got a nice beard. What do you mean nice beard? It must be bad. Must be ugly. No? Everything must be bad about him. You can't say anything. It's either you are fully with us, You cannot be silent on the fence. You must be outspoken in favor of America and Britain, and outspoken against Islam and Muslims, against the idea of Sharia, against the idea of a caliphate, against the idea of jihad. You must be. Otherwise, you're with the terrorists. You understand how things have changed over the years, how things got worse and worse. They started to really make it clear. You must be outspoken. They started to complain. How come we didn't hear enough condemnation from the Muslim community? How come the Muslims didn't come out? How come they didn't come out in the streets to condemn and to protest against what the Muslims are doing abroad? Okay? Not only that, they're upset. How come Muslims are coming out to condemn what we're doing abroad? No, then that can't happen. Okay? You know, we don't say, where are all the British public? Why are the British people not coming out to on the streets to condemn Guantanamo Bay? Why aren't they coming out to condemn the use of chemical weapons by America? Why aren't they in the streets to condemn the torture in Abu Ghraib? Why aren't they doing all of that? You know, nobody can say, oh well, we haven't seen enough condemnation from the British public, from the Christian community, or the atheist community, or the Jewish community, because of what's happening in, the Central African Republic, what's happening in Palestine, in Gaza, what's happening in Afghanistan, what's happening. Where is the Burmese community coming out to condemn what's happening to the Rohingya in Myanmar? Nobody can say that, but they can have the audacity to say to the Muslims who are being slaughtered everywhere in the world. They have the audacity to say to them, why don't you come out? Why don't you come out and stand with us against your brothers? So, freedom of speech became, look, you're not getting it. We gave you freedom so you could take our side by your own choice, but you didn't take that choice. You chose the wrong side. So they said, now we're going to tell you what to think. We're going to tell you what to say. And you can't just say, I don't want to say it. You have to say it. If you don't say it, you're part of the enemy. You must be one of them. You're radical. You're extremist. If you don't say what we want you to say, that means you must be, violent extremists. You must have new prevent programs to stop people like you. And now we have the new era. Okay, 2015. Where can we run out of space? Okay, we'll have to rub out some of these crimes. I don't like to rub out the crimes because if we. Okay, so become the new era now, 2015. And what did David Cameron say? After all of this, he still said, oh, we're such a tolerant society. We've been too tolerant with you people. We've been too passively tolerant. We're letting you get away with everything. Get away with what exactly? He said, don't think, this is fairly paraphrased, I guess, a little paraphrase. He said, don't think just because you obey the law that you will be left alone. Okay? What exactly does that mean? I thought that's what laws are there for. I thought you're supposed to obey the law. I thought that's what I wanted you to do. I thought the police, when they come around and say, hey, we're here to enforce the law, we will be checking to do what? What do they want us to do? Break the law? Are they going to leave us alone if we break the law or what? So they say it's not enough. How come? Because why? Because we can't arrest you. They're complaining. They're saying, look, how come they don't arrest Sheikh Anjem Choudary? Well, because he didn't break the law, that's why. Okay? And they're frustrated with us about that. For many years they've been frustrated. Every time you look back to the history, the archives, look to the Hansard of all the parliament sessions where they discuss Sheikh Omar Bakr Muhammad, Al-Muhajirun, Anjum, when they discuss them, they say the same thing. The Home Secretary, each Home Secretary, they'll have a speech saying exactly the same thing. They say, we're watching them very closely. Okay, it's almost like word for word every time. So we're watching them very closely. And if they break the law, we will arrest them. But we don't break the law! And they went into court and they testified. The police testified. He said the problem with these people is that they always stay on the right side of the law. Is that a problem? What kind of problem is that? What kind of problem is that? At least in the Sharia, if you don't obey the law, you won't be punished. But no, in this country, if you obey the law, you'll still be punished. That's what he's saying. He's saying, but who is that targeted to? He's not talking about the Jews in Britain, that they're going to be arrested just because even if they break the law. if they obey the law. No. He's not talking about the Christians or the Hindus or the Sikhs or the Buddhists. There's only one community he's talking about. He's talking about the Muslims. And what people don't understand as well, they think that these new laws, that the new proposed laws, are targeting people like Anjum Chowdhury. It's not the case. It's not the case. It is tailor-made to fit Anjum Chowdhury, it's true. And people like me and Abdul Izzuddin. But the truth is, what they're talking about, these banning orders, these ideas to shut down premises, the ideas to silence them, to tell them they can't use social media, they can't use, give public speeches. They've been doing that to us for years. They've shut down premises many times. Many times. Anybody who knows our history knows how many premises we've had and how many of them have been shut down and closed down by the police, by the authorities. They know how many times we've been raided and arrested, our property being taken, no charges, no trial, nothing. They know how many times we've been given bail, which lasts for a whole year or longer. They just keep extending it, to one day being dropped. But the whole time we're on bail, they have conditions. You can't leave the country, you can't have a passport, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't have da'wah stall. I think, you'll be surprised. I know at least, 2 or 3 dozen people who have had bail conditions that said, you cannot attend or organize a da'wah stall. And I'm not talking about, I'm not exaggerating, I'm not adding anything verbatim. They put the Arabic word da'wah in the bail condition. Sometimes the judge has to ask, well, what does that mean exactly? Okay? But they'll put it in there. So they've been doing that for us to us for years. It's not going to be much of a change for us. For us, is what they're going to do to us, what they've been doing to us all this time. But who are these powers targeted at? It's targeted at the rest of the Muslims. The Muslims who wouldn't normally have to face this kind of attack. Who normally, if they were to face these kind of conditions, they might have said something to complain about it. Some people might have had some sympathy towards them. No, we're going to have any real sympathy for Anjum Chowdhury. No, we're soft targets. They can do it to us and people will probably say, good, we don't like them anyway. But other people, they can't do it to them. But now they want to make it law. They want to say it with the take off the mask and say, no, this is our real face. And yet they think we're still a pretty face. They want to say we're still good. We should be able to remove all these freedoms. And even if they don't break the law, we should be able to silence them. And we should be proud about it. Which means they're not only going to use it against soft targets like us. They're going to use it against the ordinary Muslim who's had to go through all of these stages already. They thought we can be silent. Then they said, okay, all right, fine. All right, we'll just condemn them a little bit. They said, okay, look. They say to them, you can't be silent. Just condemn Anjum Chowdhury. Just condemn this group and that group and you'll be surprised. I know of imams that have been fired from mosques because they didn't condemn, Anjum Chowdhury enough. Because that was the prevent program. That was the prevent program. They paid and they will put pressure on the mosques, on the schools and everybody to say to them, you need to speak against these people. You need to speak against that group and this group and that group. You need to speak about these Muslims, these ideas. The ideas of opposing homosexuality, the ideas of the resisting the occupation of Palestine, the idea of Sharia as being an alternative. These were what was considered to be extremism. If you didn't condemn it, then you're in trouble. You can't just remain silent. You have to actively be against these Islamic ideas. And then they started bringing these ideas of safeguarding for the children. So they said if the children show signs of being radicalized, that, for example, should start to wear hijab. They started to pray. They didn't used to pray before. These kind of ideas. So it's become actively trying to curtail Islam. If you're not part of that, then you're with the terrorists. Okay. But now it's even more. Now it's even more than that. Now they're saying, if we don't like the ideas you have in your heart, even in your own heart, if we don't like it, then we're going to put power. We're going to use powers against you. So you don't ever speak it out. You're not allowed to express it at all. You're not allowed, not even quietly and privately. In fact, we need to take away all of your freedoms, all of your rights, all of the ordinary day-to-day life that anybody can expect. In any state, we won't allow you to have it. We won't allow you to live that normal life because we don't like what you believe. We don't like what you think. You don't have to break any laws. We will do it anyway. Okay? So that's what how Britain, has exposed its true face of dictatorship in the UK. Okay? And obviously, America have their own Patriot Act, it's exactly the same thing. And all these other countries, in Australia, are the same. France, they're even more advanced. They are, they've been doing that for a long time. Went to France on one day. We had a day trip, to have just one small demonstration against the niqab ban. Okay, and some of you might have been there with us as well. Just one single protest we were going to do. Okay, the idea for Muslims to gather and have a protest in France against the niqab ban, the whole of France went crazy. They went crazy. Suddenly we found the whole coach is stopped at Dover. We expected it to be stopped anyway. Stopped again in Calais. Okay, and surprise, that they woke up the I can't remember if it's called the Home Secretary, the equivalent to the Home Secretary in France. They woke them up early in the morning. Within maybe 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. They woke them up and rushed a quick document, made them sign it, and signed, from officially from France, banning Anjem Choudary is not allowed to enter France, and sent him home. Went to all the trouble. What? Who's going there to do a protest? Oh my God! Freedom of speech. France was the one that had the biggest claim to. We believe in all freedom of speech. You can't stop our freedom. Okay, I'm coming to do a protest. No, you're not. You're not doing a protest here. You don't have that freedom. Not only that, we went to a place to do this demonstration. Within 2 minutes, the police, they came, and we found that they've been arresting anybody in that area where the protest was planned. Anybody wearing hijab, khimar, jilbab, beard, anybody, they arrested them just in case they come to the protest. They arrested 22 people on that day because they suspected they were going to be taking part in that protest. Okay, we found ourselves when we arrived there, we were chased off. We had to go somewhere else. Because why? The police were there within 2 minutes. Within 2 minutes they were there. So we jumped on the metro and went somewhere else. That's the kind of tactics that France has been using. They're ahead of Britain in this regard, I think, a little bit more. Plus they're very violent as well. They're very violent. The French police, very different. So anyway, these countries have started to expose their true face of dictatorship. While they used to do all of this under the table, behind a mask, to say we are so fair, we are so just, we have so much freedom. But now David Cameron said, look, let's just stop fooling everybody. Let's just stop fooling ourselves. Just we are who we are. This is what we are. We're not going to leave you alone just because you obey the law. No, either you believe what we believe, or we don't like you. We don't accept you. وَلَن تَرْضَ عَنْكَ الْيَهُودَ وَلَا النَّصَارَى حَتَّى تَتَّبِعَ مِلَّتَهُمْ. The Jews and the Christians will never be pleased with you until you follow their way of life. The Democrats will never be pleased with you until you believe in their democracy. Until you believe in what they believe. That's what they really believe. Until you believe exactly what they believe. And then you say you are really with them 100%. They will never be happy with you. And even then they'll still suspect you. They'll still be suspicious of you. Those people who abandoned everything and they became MPs, and they were called Sadiq Khan and this and that. MPs, everything. And whenever the party wants to condemn Islam, they put that brown face forward. They say, "Go, you do it. You say it. You say, you're a Muslim. You can get away with it." And even him, Sadiq Khan, he was an MP, and they said, "Look, the police." They said, "Well, look, we can't just let him go around and do whatever he wants." They started to bug him. Started to see what he's saying. They started to bug he visited some people in prison from his constituents. Started to say, we need to say what he's saying. What they're discussing. What they're talking about? He's a Muslim. He's a Muslim and looks like another Muslim. So they must be up to something. So they started to bug them as well. So even if you follow them, even if you become one of them, they still don't trust you. They'll still see you as a foreigner, as you're not really one of us. And this is what Allah Ta'ala warned us about. We shouldn't be so naive. We shouldn't be so foolish that we leave what Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala informed us about them and we start to think that we know better than Allah. If somebody has secret information, they're not going to leave it. If you got a spy, they've got spies out in the community to listen and to hear what the people are saying. If the spy comes back and says, look, these people are plotting to, they're going to do something against you, they're not going to say, we'll be okay, don't worry. They're going to use that information. They will take it seriously. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us information about the ghaib, about the future. He's given us information about what is in the heart of the disbelievers. That we cannot see that by ourselves. We can't see it by ourselves. Allah told us that they will never be pleased or happy with us. No matter what you do, you could kiss their feet, but they won't be happy with you. They will never be happy with you until you become one of them, you follow their way of life. And even then, they will still disrespect you. So if Allah told you that, Allah gave you that secret information, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you that secret news, because He is Al-Khabir, He has all the hidden news. You know? Who needs mukhabarat and secret service, secret police and spies? You know, don't need any of that. We have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's already informed us. So why are you going to leave that advice and you say, no, this guy, his name's David. Yeah, he's alright. David's alright. He likes Islam. He said he read the Quran. Maybe he's a potential Muslim. No. We already know what the outcome will be. We already know what our relationship is going to be. So this is what happened next. So now we're in the stage now of David Cameron, and this is what we call, this is called the stage now of secular fundamentalism. I believe so, yes. Surah Baqarah 120, yeah. Okay, so secular fundamentalism. Okay, what's fundamentalism? Fundamentalism is what I oppose your views and I use violence. Okay, I oppose your views and I'm going to use violence against you. So here the Muslims are, we want to debate and discuss, we just want to have, discussion. Look, is Islam better for the world, or is democracy better for the world? Why can't we discuss it? Why can't we debate it? They don't want to debate it. They want to say, no, it's our way or we're going to arrest you. It's our way or we're going to harm you, we're going to punish you, or we're going to drone strike you. We're going to take away your passport, your citizenship, leave you in limbo somewhere in a foreign country, and then America will drone strike you. That's what they want to say. So that they are the true fundamentalists, the true terrorists, the true extremists. Okay? And that's what is going on today. That's what we're facing today. Okay? So now comes the question, what does Islam say about all of this? And this is the last really point we're going to discuss, inshallah. What does Islam say about all of that? What should we be doing? Should we, do we believe in freedom of speech in Islam, first of all? Do we believe, that, well, actually, we should, we have the right to remain silent, so we should remain silent, and, and that way we'll be safe? Do we say, okay, well, look, darura akhi, majburi here, we are being forced, we're under duress, so therefore, what can we do? We have to condemn Islam, condemn Sharia, condemn Khilafah, just to protect ourselves, to get a bit of benefit from ourselves. If we do that, they will let us have a mosque. If we do that, they will let us have, this center, they won't close us down. If we, become a bit more proactively British and Western and democratic, then maybe they will then leave us alone. Okay? Maybe. So what should we do? Is that what we do? Is it for us to compromise? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He warned us about this tactic as well. In Surah Qalam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَدُّوا لَوْ تُدْهِنُوا فَيُدْهِنُونَ. They wish and they would love for you to compromise with them a little, then they will compromise with you a little. So step by step, compromise will compromise. Then it becomes, that's not good enough, you need to compromise again. That's not good enough as well. You still need to do a bit more. Another compromise. Until eventually you got nothing left. You got nothing left. Then Allah said what? He said, فَلَا تُطِعْ. Do not obey them. Do not obey them. Do not accept their compromise. The Muslim does not compromise. Okay. So, I'm going to talk about now, what does Islam say about the right to remain silent? Okay. So far, the talk we said was called, you have no right to remain silent, because we were talking about this. What happened to our right to remain silent? And what was expected of the Muslims in this country? So now I will tell you, inshallah, from Islamic perspective. Does Islam believe in freedom of speech? No. It doesn't believe in freedom of speech. It believes in hifdhul lisan. It believes in guarding your tongue. Guarding your tongue from saying something haram or evil, swearing, lying, cursing, slander, backbiting is not allowed. You don't have a choice. You can't just say what you want. And guarding your tongue from being silent as well. Because Islam says from a different angle now. You have no right to remain silent. Okay? You have no right to remain silent. Who said you have the right to remain silent? Who said that? In Islam, you have a duty to speak out against crimes and evil. You have a duty to speak against the oppression. You have a duty to forbid evil and to command good. You have a duty to call to Islam. No matter what they threaten you with and fight against you because of it, you have a duty to do so. That was a command to the Prophet ﷺ, despite whatever calamity came his way. It was a command for the Muslims, despite whatever calamity came, and there's always known calamities will come with the duty of commanding good from the evil. You cannot avoid it. You cannot, you cannot run away from it. So in Islam, we say, no matter what David Cameron threatens you with, no matter what the new prevent strategy or the new challenge strategy or the new contest 2 strategy or 3 or 4 or 5, whatever strategy they want to bring forward, you've got no right to remain silent. It's not up to you to say, maybe they'll leave me alone. It's not up to you. You have to speak. You have to speak the truth. And you have to command good and forbid the evil. You must stand up to every oppressor. Otherwise, you are going to be punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Forget about prevent and forget about MI5 and the police and the courts in this country, the kangaroo courts in this country. Forget about all of that. Some of the cases in this country are unbelievable. Quite literally, people being convicted for remaining silent. In the police interview, the case of Sabil Ahmed? Sabil Ahmed was arrested because his brother did an attack in Glasgow airport. Okay, and he passed away. Rahimahullah. May Allah accept him and forgive him. Brother Sabil Ahmed, he was arrested a few hours after that happened. He didn't even know what had happened. He was arrested straight away. And in the police interview, they said, you have the right, you don't have to answer any questions when asked. The normal Miranda rights. He said, but if you don't say something that you later rely on court, then it could be used against you. It could be, they could infer something against you because of that. That's the normal rights. So in the police interview, he said, no comment. He didn't respond to any questions. He didn't answer. Then he was charged with what? Because he said no comment in the police interview, he was charged with withholding information useful to the police for something to do with preventing a terrorist attack. A terrorist attack had already happened, by the way. No way for him to prevent an attack that already happened. But he was arrested and he was charged for withholding information because he said no comment in the police interview. Yeah? And they held him for a long time on remand, waiting for trial, until he got fed up and he said, forget it, I'm going to plead guilty, I want to go home. He pled guilty and he went home. And he'd never been happy. He said, okay, I'm not coming back to this country. Who cares if I have a criminal record here? He was a doctor. He said, now he's in another country, abroad, I won't say which one, but he's abroad now, he's working as a doctor. So he didn't care. Let them do it. So, this is the kind of crazy cases they're putting on people. Literally, being imprisoned because you remain silent. Because you refuse to answer questions to the police. That's it. That's all he did. That's the kind of crazy cases. I was arrested for giving a speech in a protest. Abu Wala was here. He was arrested for holding a placard. He didn't even say a word. For holding a placard. In fact, they gave him 2 counts. Why? They said, before the Salah, he carried placard. After prayed Jum'ah, he held another placard. Is it 2 counts of soliciting murder? He held a placard. This is the crazy kind of laws they have in this country. How many cases? Muhammad Hamid, he'd been arrested for giving speeches. Abu Abdullah, arrested for having convicted for giving speeches. There were 4 of us on our case. There was another, I can't remember how many it was, maybe 10 or something in the case about Fallujah, from Regent's Park Mosque. All because of speeches. There was a sister who was arrested for writing poems. She wrote poems. And they said she's what she is, glorifying terrorism. Yeah, that's Muhammad Hamid, the one I was talking about before. Yeah, him as well. And he's a beautiful brother. This brother, I remember him dearly. This brother, may Allah free him. So what was I saying? So I was saying, as a Muslim, we can never take this stance that they're talking about. Do you condemn or condone? We can never take the stance of, defending Britain or America or democracy or the Western way of life just to save our skin. It's not allowed. Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Nisa, verse 105, He said, وَلَا تَكُنْ لِلْخَائِنِينَ خَصِيمًا. He said, don't be for those treacherous people somebody to plead or to argue on their behalf. You can't do that. So when they ask you, do you condemn or condone? Are you with us or are you against us? You cannot say, even pretending to be, you cannot say, okay, yeah, we're with you. We love this country. You can't do that. You can't say, oh yeah, we love democracy. We want democracy. You can't do that. You stand with Islam. You don't compromise. You don't pretend to be something you're not. Okay, you must speak the truth. Also, Allah Ta'ala, He warned us in Surah Ali Imran, verse 187. Let me write some of these references on the board, inshallah, for you as well. So, we said, that was, first one we said was 4:105. 4:105. And the next verse, Surah 3, verse 187. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, okay, وَإِذْ أَخَذَ اللَّهُ مِيثَاقَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ لَتُبَيِّنَنَّهُ لِلنَّاسِ وَلَا تَكْتُمُونَهُ فَنَبَذُوهُ وَرَاءَ ظُهُورِهِمْ وَاشْتَرُوا بِهِ ثَمَنًا قَلِيلًا فَبِئْسَ مَا يَشْتَرُونَ. He said, and Allah took the pledge, the covenant from the people of the book, from the Jews and the Christians before, to explain the book of Allah to the people, to present it and talk about it to the people, and وَلَا تَكْتُمُونَهُ, and not to hide it, not to conceal anything, and they did it, they concealed it, and they hid it behind their backs, and they sold the verses of Allah for a small price. And I said, فَبِئْسَ مَا يَشْتَرُونَ, and how evil is what they traded. And what do I mean by a small price? They're offering what, £40,000 to become MI5 spy? It used to be even less than that. It used to be like 16,000. I remember a couple of people, they were approached by MI5. And they were, 16,000? I'm going to sell my whole deen for 16,000? Well, what's wrong with them? They think, what, I'm going to become kafir for 16, even 40,000. What's that? £200. £200. £200. What are you going to get? What are you going to get with that? They offered one guy, said, we'll give you a British passport. We'll give you a British passport if you just help us. And they helped him against Abu Hamza, Spider and stuff. In the end, they didn't give him nothing. They didn't give him anything at all. No British. Until today, he's complaining, oh, what about where's my passport? So these people, they think, we'll sell your deen, sell the verses of Allah, just for something so small. Even if they gave you the whole earth and everything in it, it's a small price. That is a small price. And you'll be selling your deen, selling your whole life. And also, we know how the ulama, they used to say, based upon the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the ulama of the Salaf, they used to say that الساكت عن الحق شيطان أخرس. He said the one who is silent about the truth, he is a mute shaitan. So do you have the right to remain silent? You don't have the right to remain. And that's based on the hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said that whoever was silent about the truth which is asked about, which people are asking about, and he's silent about it, he said he will be bridled with a bridle of hellfire in the hereafter. Okay, in hellfire. So meaning, if you know the truth, and people want to know it, they're asking about it, and you hide it, you're silent about it, you're going to be punished. Allah going to put fire in your mouth. And not just ordinary fire, hellfire. The hellfire, which is, they said, the hellfire, if you took the smoke of the hellfire, and you washed it 70 times, it is still 70 times hotter than anything you've known in this life. Forget about the sun, even any star, any sun, the hottest thing you can imagine in this universe. Just the smoke of the fire after being washed is still 70 times hotter than it. Allah's going to put that in your mouth if you are silent about it. And that's why the real Muslim, the real mu'min, the real muwahhid, he cannot tolerate to be silent about the truth. He cannot tolerate being silent about evil and oppression. When he sees it, he feels, no, how can I witness this and I didn't speak about it? How can I say nothing about it? What can they offer you? What can they threaten you with? That's scarier than that. What can they actually, do to you that is worse than for you to have hellfire in your mouth? Let them send you to prison if they have to. Let them do whatever they like. It's nothing compared to what's waiting for you in the hellfire. Not only that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Anfal verse 25. Okay. Surah 8 verse 25, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاتَّقُوا فِتْنَةً لَا تُصِيبَنَّ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنْكُمْ خَاصَّةً وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. He said, and fear a punishment that does not only affect the oppressors among you. And know that Allah is severe and stern and strict in His punishment. This ayah is very serious because, as well known, this ayah is about commanding good, forbidding the evil. Allah is declaring that when Allah decides to destroy a people and punish a people because of their crimes, Allah is not interested in punishing just the criminal among them, but everybody in that society. The one who witnessed it and didn't stop him, he is guilty with the one who did it. They are the same. Both of them will be punished. Both of them will be destroyed. Both of them will face the calamity from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, in one narration he said that the first defect that appeared in Bani Israel, okay, the first defect that happened among them is that one of them used to see his brother doing a crime, and the first time he will say to him, oh so and so, oh man, stop what you're doing. Da hada. He said, don't do this. It's not allowed for you. But then he wouldn't stop sitting with him, living with him, eating with him, drinking with him, trading with him. Everything is normal, carry on. Let him. He didn't stop the sin, but he continued to live with him. He didn't stop him. And said because of that, Allah turned their hearts against each other. They turned their hearts against each other and cursed them on the tongue of Dawood alayhi salam and Isa ibn Maryam. Okay. And he said, and he quoted the ayah in Surah Ma'idah verse 78 and 79. Okay. Verse 78 to 79, Surah Ma'idah. Okay. In this hadith, the Prophet quoted this ayah. He said, لُعِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ عَلَى لِسَانِ دَاوُودَ وَعِيسَى بْنِ مَرْيَمَ. He said, Allah cursed, or they were cursed, the disbelievers of Bani Israel on the tongue of Dawood and Isa ibn Maryam alayhim salam. ذَلِكَ بِمَا عَصَوْا وَكَانُوا يَعْتَدُونَ. That is because they used to disobey and became transgressors. What was this big transgression? What exactly was that transgression they did? كَانُوا لَا يَتَنَاهَوْنَ عَنْ مُنْكَرٍ فَعَلُوهُ لَبِئْسَ مَا كَانُوا يَفْعَلُونَ. So they never used to forbid the evil they were committing. And how evil is what they used to do. They thought they had the right to remain silent. They thought, so what if, we can see all of these crimes taking place in front of us. So what if a few people are being oppressed? They thought, but I have the right to remain silent. I don't have to speak against it. I can just keep myself to myself. I can be law-abiding, good, British Muslim, integrated Muslim. That's what they thought. Allah said, how evil is that silence? How evil were they because of that silence? Because they didn't used to forbid the evil. He said, كَانُوا لَا يَتَنَاهَوْنَ عَنْ مُنْكَرٍ فَعَلُوا. They never used to forbid the evil that they were committing. لَبِئْسَ مَا كَانُوا يَفْعَلُونَ. And how evil is what they used to do. Then the Prophet ﷺ said about this, after this, he said, وَالَّذِي نَفْسُ مُحَمَّدًا بِيَدِهِ. He said, by the one who the soul of Muhammad is in his hand. لَا تَأْمُرُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَلَتَنْهَوُنَّ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. He said, you must command good and you must forbid the evil. وَلَتَأْخُذَنَّ عَلَى يَدِ الظَّالِمِ. And you must take the hand of the oppressor to stop him. وَلَتَأْطُرَنَّ عَلَى الْحَقِّ أَطْرًا. And you must be stern and strict with the truth. This ta'tir. أَوْ تَقْصُرَنَّهُ عَلَى الْحَقِّ قَصْرًا. Otherwise you'll be deficient in the truth. And in another narration, that's hadith in Sunan al-Tirmidhi and Tafsir ibn Kathir. In another narration of the same hadith, he said, لَا تَأْمُرُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَلَا تَنْهَوُنَّ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. So you must command good and you must forbid the evil. Otherwise, Allah will send you a punishment and then you will supplicate to Allah and Allah will not respond to you. Allah won't respond to you. Okay? So do we have the right to remain silent? No. All those crimes of Britain and America we're talking about, you can't be silent about it. You can't say it's nothing to do with me. You can't say it's not my business. You have to stand up. You must stand with the Muslims. You must defend the Muslims. You must speak up in favor of Islam and against the kufr and the shirk and the crimes and the oppression. You must speak against the munkar wherever you are. And the Prophet ﷺ, he was asked a question. He said, Ayyu afdalil jihad? Which one is the greatest jihad? He said, kalimatu haqqin inda sultan al-jair. He said, a word of truth in front of a tyrant ruler. That's duty upon us. It is compulsory upon us. And even he praised the one who was killed for it. And he said he is from Sayyid al-Shuhada. He is from the masters of the martyrs. Because he spoke a word of truth in front of the tyrant ruler and he was killed for it. So what about if the punishment is less than that? You can't say it's not hikmah. It's hikmah. That's why I say, and I don't care anybody who disagrees with me. I said this on Twitter, and many people say, no, you can't say that. Because they don't want to do it, that's why. By Allah, speaking a word of truth in front of a tyrant ruler is always maslahah, benefit, is always hikmah. Otherwise, Allah would never have praised the one who died in that path. If there was anything harmful that could come from it, then the one who died for speaking the truth in front of a tyrant ruler, he would never be praised. He would never be called the master of the martyrs. Rather, he would be condemned and say, look, he destroyed himself, he didn't have hikmah. Allah didn't say that. Rather, Allah praised him above all the others. Above all the others. So, we say you must speak out. Even when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَاصْدَعْ بِمَا تُؤْمَرْ وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْمُشْرِكِينَ إِنَّا كَفَيْنَاكَ الْمُسْتَهْزِئِينَ. This ayah is a very important one in this context especially. Surah Hijr verse 94 to 95. This ayah was revealed in Mecca. And in Tafsir Ibn Kathir, he said that this was revealed at a time when the Prophet ﷺ was facing the greatest attack, the greatest insults and swearing against him, and labeling him and slandering him and calling him names: magician, fortune teller, liar, all these names they call him. They started to say to the people, he's brainwashing. He said, sihr al-bayan, he said the magic words that separate father from son and husband from wife. They say, you say, ihdar ghulam Quraysh. He said, beware of this boy. Beware of this boy of Quraysh. He said, don't go near him. Prevent strategy. They went around telling everybody, don't listen to him. Don't sit with him. Don't talk to him. They even had boycott. They said, you're not allowed to trade with Banu Hashim. You're not allowed to trade with them, or give them food, or buy and sell with them, or marry them. They said, treat them like the camel's disease. They had to live out in the valley. They did all of this against the Prophet ﷺ. So in the heat of that, when in Ibn Kathir said that when the attack against the Prophet ﷺ and the companions was at its height, was at its worst, after all of these stages, they thought they'd win over the Muslims. They thought they bully the Muslims into changing their ways and become more British. But the Muslims stood firm. Each time, they became even more radicalized. Because Muslims are a little bit different from everybody else. Some people, you bully them a little bit, so, okay, I give up. Forget it. Never mind. Who needs Hinduism anyway? Okay, I'm British, no problem. With the Muslim, when you bully him a little bit, he said, no, I'm Muslim. I'm really Muslim. That time, the one who used to call himself Bobby and Mo, suddenly becomes Abdul Jabbar and Muhammad. Suddenly says, no, I'm not going to be Bobby anymore. Now I'm Muhammad. I'm proud of Islam. Suddenly the one who used to be integrated Muslim, meaning he was a drug addict and he was a drug dealer, gangster, suddenly when he saw them attacking Islam, his love for Islam started to come out and said, look, I need to change what I'm doing. He starts praying, he starts giving up the drugs. He starts saying, no, now I want to fight jihad. The one who used to sing rap songs suddenly goes to Syria. So you see how everything changes. With the Muslims, a bit different. Some people, MI5 knocks on the door, they become terrified, their face goes white and they say, okay, fine, no problem, I'm British agent. Muslim, you knock on his door, MI5, you're MI5. You want me to work for you? He becomes angry with him. Now the Muslim suddenly changed, a completely different reaction. So they don't know how to deal with us. They don't understand the psyche of the Muslim. They're trying to apply what works with everybody else to the Muslim. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. So, with Muhammad ﷺ, in the heat of that attack against him, all of that pressure, all of that propaganda, all of that boycott and attack and insult and slander, What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to do? You're being given the choice now to say, David Cameron, the David Cameron of Quraysh, Abu Lahab and Abu Jahl, they said, it's not enough that you abide by the laws. We're going to torture you anyway. We're going to kill you anyway. We're going to harm you anyway. And that's what happened, in fact, because if part of their own biggest problem they had was their own values in the among Quraysh. British, they've got this conflict between freedom of speech. Should we give them freedom or shouldn't we? We believe in freedom, but we can't give it to them. They're not supposed to have it. So they've got this conflict. They don't know how to deal with it themselves. In the Quraysh, they had a similar conflict. They said, look, we want to kill this man. How can we let him carry on? But we believe in tribalism. But if we do it, look, his tribes are going to attack us. So they had their own conflict. But still they said, forget the tribal system, we need to find a way to kill this man. Still they tried to. So exactly the same thing that they're facing. So how did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala order us to deal with this attack? What did He order the Prophet ﷺ with when he was facing this attack from Quraysh, the way we're facing it from the conservative government or any other government? Labour was no better really. Allah revealed, فَاصْدَعْ بِمَا تُؤْمَرْ وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. He said, you've got no right to remain silent. He said, so what if they're going to attack you and insult you? فَاصْدَعْ بِمَا تُؤْمَرْ. Declare publicly, openly, whatever Allah revealed to you. That's what Allah's solution was. That's what Allah, somebody will say, akhi, but that's not practical, akhi. Practical is practical. You don't know what you're talking about. Allah knows better than you. The wisdom is with Allah. If there's anything, wisdom is what? To say the right thing at the right time in the right way. So Allah told us what the right thing to say is whatever Allah revealed is the right thing to say. When to say it in the heart and the heat of their own impact, and the heat of the attack from the kuffar, that's when you should say it. That's the wisdom. And the way you should say it, how should you say it? فَاصْدَعْ بِمَا تُؤْمَرْ. Openly, publicly, declare it proudly, loudly. So that's called the hikmah. And whatever you think your own rational hikmah is, you're wrong. Because Allah is always right. And Allah taught us what to do. When you look to the sabab al-nuzul, the circumstances of revelation, you see exactly the time it was revealed for. Just like what we are facing now. So He said, فَاصْدَعْ بِمَا تُؤْمَرْ. Declare openly whatever Allah revealed. وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. He said, don't bother about what the mushrikeen are going to say to you. Doesn't matter what the kuffar are going to do. Turn away from them. Forget about them. إِنَّا كَفَيْنَاكَ الْمُسْتَهْزِئِينَ. Allah is enough to deal with them. Allah will deal with those who insult you and attack you. So that's how Allah Ta'ala taught us. We have no right to remain silent. We have the duty to speak out. And Allah Ta'ala, in fact, He praised us for that reason. He praised us for that reason. He said that this is what makes this ummah different and unique among all of the nations, all of the ummah. In Surah Ali Imran, verse 110. Allah Ta'ala says, كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس. He said, you are the best nation ever risen up for mankind. Why? Because we were silent? Is it because we condemn our Muslim brothers? Is it because we compromise with the kuffar? No. It's not because we eat the chilliest food either. It's not because of any of these shallow reasons. Why are we the best nation ever risen up for mankind? Because we are law-abiding citizens. And I don't mean here the Islamic law, I mean the kufr law. Because we obey the law of the land, the kufr law of the land? No. That's not the reason why we're the best nation. We don't do that. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس. You are the best nation ever risen up for mankind. Why? Because تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. Because you command good and you forbid the evil and you believe in Allah. You're never shaken. Your belief is never shaken no matter what happens to you. That is what makes us great. That is what makes us the best ummah. We follow in the footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ and his companions, who that's what they did, no matter what happened. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said something else as well. He said, لا تزال طائفة من أمتي ظاهرين على الحق. He said, there will never stop being a portion of my ummah. I mean, there will always continue a portion of my ummah that will be coming out publicly, openly with the haqq. ظاهرين means to have dhuhur, to have this being apparent and open and defending, with one of two things, or both, with the word and the sword, with the da'wah and the jihad. These two twins can never be separated. Okay, ظاهرين على الحق. And he said, and it doesn't harm them, whoever disagrees with them or whoever lets them down. Another narration said, and they fear nobody but Allah. They don't fear لا يخافون لومة لائم. They don't fear the blame of anybody who blames them, calls them whatever names they like. They don't care. It's hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari or Fath al-Bari, Sahih al-Bukhari, Sharh Sahih al-Bukhari. So Allah Ta'ala wants us. Why is where is the Prophet ﷺ telling us about this portion, by the way? Why is he telling us about this, portion of the ummah? Because he wants you to be one of them. He's telling you, be from that group. Don't be from the other groups. Be from that portion that does that duty. And don't be from the portion who tries to sit on the sidelines being silent and try and get away with something. Don't do that. And don't ever condemn your Muslim brothers as well. Don't ever do that. No, there's no reason. Even if you disagree with your brother, why should you come out in front of the kuffar and condemn them? No, we don't do that. No, we don't do that. Even that, Allah Ta'ala, He warned us about in the Quran. There's a verse. See, when the Quraysh, they asked the Prophet ﷺ just to, not even to make bara'ah from Muslims, not to disassociate himself from Muslim, but they said, look, we will listen to what you have to say. But let these Muslims with you, let them leave. Okay? And the only reason they said that is because we don't want them to think they can sit with us. They're poor, we are nobles. Okay? We don't want them to think they can just sit with us whenever they like. So let them leave and we'll sit and we'll listen to you. Okay? And obviously this was the chiefs of the Quraysh. The Prophet ﷺ was thinking, well look, if I can get this person to become Muslim, it can impact heavily on the entire community. It can have a great impact and benefit for Islam. Allah Ta'ala, He revealed about that in Surah Kahf. I'll find the reference for you, inshaAllah. Exactly. Allah Ta'ala said in Surah Kahf, Surah 18, verse. Apologize for this and just give you one moment to find this exact reference for you. I can find a quick search. No, it's not in Surah Kahf, sorry. Surah, that's why I couldn't find it. Surah An'am, Surah 6, verse 52. Okay, Surah 6, verse 52. Okay, this is to answer the question about do you condemn or do you condone? Okay, he said, وَلَا تَطْرُدِ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَدَاةِ وَالْعَشِيِّ يُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَهُ مَا عَلَيْكَ مِنْ حِسَابِهِمْ مِنْ شَيْءٍ وَمَا مِنْ حِسَابِكَ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. He said, فَتَطْرُدَهُمْ فَتَكُونَ مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. He said, do not send away or turn away from those who are calling on their Lord day and night, seeking His pleasure. And is nothing, is no accountability for you, to account them in anything. I mean to make them Muslim or not. You're not accountable for that. And nor are they accountable for you. But if you were to turn away those Muslims, distance yourself from those Muslims, even something small like this, they just wanted to say, look, recognize that we are nobles, and these Muslims, these poor people, that they're not as good as what they can't sit with us. To compromise that wala and bara, even just for that small issue. Allah said, no, don't do that. Don't ever let them have that status in front of you over any Muslim. No way. And He said, فَتَضْرُدَهُمْ فَتَكُونَ مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. If you did it, if you send them away, if you distance yourself from them, you become from the oppressors. And that was addressing Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam over this morning. What about when they say to you, do you condemn your Muslim brother? Do you condemn this man? And funny, they are the biggest criminals, they want you to condemn somebody. No? And they don't want to ask you, do you condemn or condone us? No, they never ask that question. They don't ask you that question. They don't ask anybody that question. They don't go around asking anybody, do you condemn or condone Guantanamo Bay? Do you condemn or condone Abu Ghraib? Do you condemn and condone America's torture and waterboarding? They don't ask anybody that question. Muslim or non-Muslim. Because that has to be taken as a given. So it doesn't matter. Okay? Maybe it's not right. Maybe it's not the best thing, but we are still the heroes. That's what they want to say. And you have to believe it. And if you say anything other than that, if you suggest that you are the real criminals and other people have the right to defend themselves against you, then that means you're a terrorist. Okay. So do you condemn and condone? Allah said, don't ever condemn Muslims. Don't distance yourself from any Muslims. انصر أخاك ظالما أو مظلوما. Stand with your brother, support your brother, whether oppressor or oppressed. Okay. You support the oppressor how? By preventing him from his oppression, but not by standing with his enemy and say, yeah, that's the oppressor. You stand with your brother and say, we'll stand together against those oppressors, those kuffar. Well, brother, don't be an oppressor. Don't do this oppression. Okay, that's how you do that job. So this is the hukum. The Muslim has no right to remain silent about evil or oppression, no matter what the circumstances and no matter where they are in the earth. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.
الله أكبر.